They asked me to talk about osteoporosis, and when I decided to fill out the conflict of interest thing, I said, this is a conflict of interest because if you listen to what I say, I'm going to go out of business. So, but listen, because I think it's important. Osteoporosis is an incredible problem that we have. Just to go over, they asked for an update. I think you need a little background. If you were here last year, this is a little repetitive. But what is osteoporosis? It's not osteoarthritis. Let's start with that. It is a loss of bone mineral density. And here you see what the World Health Organization defines as osteoporosis on a DEXA scan. So it's a standard deviation. First of all, their norms were 6,000 people in Texas. Don't ask me why. People in Texas must have strong bones. But that's what the World Health Organization based their 6,000 people in. And so the normal was based on that. So if you're 2.5 standard deviations below the norm, you have, by definition, osteoporosis on a DEXA scan. It's the only thing that really counts. There's a lot of other things that have been tried for osteoporosis evaluation, heel X-rays and things like that. They're really not, they're not appropriate. The only thing that really we can use is a DEXA scan. People often ask me when I take X-rays in the office, do you see osteoporosis? I said, no, you can't tell from a standard X-ray. So there is osteopenia. That is from -1 to 2.5. You're on your way to osteoporosis, but you're not there yet. So osteoporosis is a specific definition. Some statistics: 10 million people are affected. There are 33.6 million people with low bone density, and the emergency room is full of those people with broken hips. 50% of Caucasian women will incur an osteoporotic fracture, and 20% of men. Osteoporosis results in 432,000 admissions, 2.5 million office visits, and 180,000 nursing home visits annually. This is the CDC information from 2005. It's just about to be updated. They don't update it regularly, especially with the reduction in funding, so they're not real good at this. But in 2005, it cost $17 billion to fix osteoporotic fractures. No, $17 billion, yep. So what's important about bone metabolism? Why do people have osteoporosis? Well, it's a balance. You always make bone. Bone is not a dead structure. It's alive. And when you're a kid, you turn your bones over about every 6 months. But as you get older, you don't make bone as quickly. And then what happens is, as time goes on, especially in postmenopausal women, what happens is you break down bone faster than you make bone. So that leads you to osteoporosis. So that some of the treatment, you'll remember that, because some of the treatment is targeted at that equilibrium. How do you make the diagnosis? We just talked about that. DEXA scanning is the standard. Previous fracture is a very good way, and that's how orthopedists get involved. Why am I talking about osteoporosis? Because any 50-year-old woman that falls down and breaks their wrist from a standing height has osteoporosis by definition. So we see them often first. Osteoporosis is kind of the orphan child of medical problems. It shouldn't be, but it is. Medical people aren't really interested. Gynecologists inherited this because they are the only ones that see women regularly, and they kind of throw Fosamax at everything that walks. And so that's not always a good idea. There's much more science behind it. What are the risk factors? Well, postmenopausal women, we talked about that. They are the majority of people that have osteoporosis. Older people, there are occasionally young people with osteoporosis. Those are very odd things. Over-exercising, anorexia, crazy diets, things like that. If you have a slight stature, thin people, this is the one time it's probably not so good to be thin. So smoking, if you're a smoker and you're thin, you really got a problem. There are some medications that are implicated in osteoporosis, and one of them that people don't realize is some of the H2 inhibitors, the protonics, the Prilosec, and things like that. Because it reduces the acidity in your stomach, because a lot of people have reflux in this world, you may not absorb calcium adequately. So that's one that's kind of a new thing that people are looking at carefully. A lot of people take those things for long periods of time. There are some odd diets out there. People also that have lactose intolerance and things like that. These people are more prone to osteoporosis. Excessive exercise, we talked about that, and family history. If your mother has osteoporosis or she's got a hunched over back and is 3 inches shorter than you remember her, you have to be evaluated for osteoporosis at some point. What do we do about it? Well, dietary manipulations are everybody's start. So calcium, there was some recent press that said calcium is not useful for osteoporosis. Really, that's not what they said. They said that calcium won't rebuild your bones in osteoporosis, and that's true. But you need calcium. So you need calcium all along in your life. You actually need calcium as a child. If you're lactose intolerant, as we talked about, and you don't get calcium, you need to be taking calcium. Right now, the current recommendations are for 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams of calcium up until about the age of 18, and then over the age of 50, you should be taking that. In the middle, you probably still need 1,000 milligrams of calcium. So calcium is important. It just won't fix osteoporosis. So I think that a lot of people took away the wrong message from the recent press releases. Vitamin D, it's a very hot topic in osteoporosis and medicine in general. Vitamin D has been implicated in a lot of different things nowadays, but you need vitamin D. And in the Northeast, we don't get a lot of vitamin D, especially during the winter months. And so a lot of people are vitamin D deficient. People often come in and ask me, well, how much vitamin D should I take? Well, if you'd asked me that question about 10 years ago, I'd said 400 units of vitamin D. That's what you should take. Well, that's changed. Nowadays, most people say 800 and maybe 1,000, but really the only way to know that you are vitamin D deficient is to get a vitamin D serum level. And if you don't do that, you really don't know where you stand. A lot of people are very deficient in vitamin D, especially if they don't go outside or they see their dermatologist regularly, because dermatologists won't let you go outside. So you need vitamin D, and as I say, you may want to get that at your next physical. What do you do about it? What kinds of things how can we treat it medically other than with dietary manipulations? Well, as I mentioned Fosamax already. That's part of a group of medications called bisphosphonates. Well, what bisphosphonates do is it reduces your resorption of bone and calcium. So you may have reduced your production of bone over your lifetime, but this now reduces the resorption of bone. So now you get that equilibrium back. Now, there is a problem with bisphosphonates, and this is what happened when you gave it to the gynecologist. They gave it to everybody, and they never told you to stop, and so that was the problem. So now you made this bone, but you never resorbed it. Well, to have strong bone, you actually need to make it and resorb it. So what happened is people started to have fractures because essentially your bones turned to chalk, because it became very brittle, and you wound up with these stress fractures that were in unusual places, like femur fractures. So bisphosphonates now, the recommendation is that you take them for no more than 3 to 5 years at a time, and then you have a holiday from that medicine to sort of let things normalize. So bisphosphonates are good. They're good for some people. They need to be monitored. You shouldn't take them forever. Prolia, some of the new things that are on the market. There are some medications. Prolia is another medication. It's an intravenous medication. It reduces your, again, resorption of calcium and resorption of bone. So it's a great medicine. It's IV. You get it about every 6 months. It's just come on the market in the last 3 to 5 years. Still, the jury's out, but it seems like it works. Let's switch gears, because Forteo, that's a different medicine. It's an injectable daily medication. It actually makes more bone. So now, instead of dealing with the resorption part, we make more bone. So this is a parathyroid hormone. It's a very useful medicine. It's very expensive. Most insurance companies have to see that you've tried something else first. There is one problem with it. There is some concern that if you take it, that it may possibly give you osteogenic sarcoma. Now that's a cancer of bone-making cells. Now the thing is, it was in rats that happened at huge rates, and it's never happened in human experience. So people are always nervous about it, and they say you can't do it for more than 2 years, and you can never do it again. That's changing. So that may be something that's going to change here in the near future. Avista, this is a medication that's, estrogen was a great thing for bones. It wasn't a good thing for a lot of other things, but it was good for bones. And it got taken off the market essentially about 5 years ago because of some problems. It's around as a Vista. It's an estrogen-like medication, so it protects your bones, but it doesn't do some of the bad things that estrogen did. So Avista is out there. And one of the new things that just came out, and it's pretty new, even the press hasn't picked up on it, is growth hormone. Growth hormone's been said to do a lot of things for people. You may see some ads about guys that look about 80 who are taking growth hormone with big muscles. They probably have heart problems, though. So, but growth hormone is now been suggested that it may help osteoporosis, and in short courses may actually help for long periods of time. So you may hear more about growth hormone in the near future. Calcium, as we said, 12 to 1,500 a day. How do you get it? Well, dairy is the best way to get it, but broccoli, sardines, nobody will eat sardines. Supplements, you have to watch out for supplements. A lot of supplements are not soluble. If you ate chalk, you can't absorb it. So the sort of acid, literally the acid test for this is put it in a glass of vinegar. If it's still there in 5 minutes, then go find a different supplement because you can't absorb it at that point. Tums has been a good one to try. The only concern about Tums is that it's made from cow's bones, and there is a lead component to that. So if you take a lot of Tums, it may not be such a good idea. Vitamin D, we talked about that, out in the sun. Some other things you can get vitamin D from, fatty fish, so salmon, sardines again. Fortified milk, mushrooms, fish oil that nobody will take. Bisphosphonates, here are some of the names of these bisphosphonates. Fosamax, alendronate. Actinol, these originally were daily medicines. They're now weekly medicines. Boniva, a once-a-month medicine. And Reclast, a once-a-year medicine. Now, I don't like Reclast because if something goes wrong with it, you've got it around for a year. So Reclast is an intravenous, once-a-year medication. It's a bisphosphonate. I think if you're not a good pill taker, it's all right. Prolia, here we go, every 6 months, reduces bone resorption. Forteo, we talked about. Growth hormone, an 18-month course. It's not FDA approved for this yet, so don't go out and ask for it. And that's it.